On April 13, 1970, 3 astronauts were flying 320,000 kilometers away from Earth. They were supposed to land on the Moon. Instead, something exploded. Suddenly, their spacecraft began to fail. Oxygen was leaking, power was failing, temperatures were dropping. One of them spoke calmly into the radio. "Houston, we have a problem." From that moment on, this was no longer a space mission. It was a fight for survival, and the entire world was watching. Apollo 13 was NASA's 7th manned mission to space. Its goal was simple: land on the Moon, conduct experiments, return home. The crew: James Lovell, Jack Swigert, Fred Haise, all experienced astronauts, all confident, all prepared. No one expected what was coming. The spacecraft launched perfectly. Everything worked as planned. The astronauts joked, and they followed routine checks. Earth slowly disappeared behind them. For 2 days, the mission was normal. Then, everything changed. On the 3rd day, NASA asked the crew to stir the oxygen tanks. Jack Swigert flipped a switch. Seconds later, boom, the spacecraft shook violently. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. One oxygen tank had exploded. Another was leaking. The ship was losing the air they needed to breathe. Jim Lovell looked out the window. He saw gas venting into space. The spacecraft was rapidly losing oxygen. Without oxygen, no breathing, no power, no life. They were too far from Earth to turn around, too damaged to land on the Moon. They were trapped. Power levels dropped fast. Carbon dioxide began building up. Temperatures fell below freezing. The astronauts shut down almost everything to save energy. They were cold, hungry, exhausted, but panic was not an option. Back on Earth, NASA engineers worked non-stop. There was no manual for this situation. They had to invent solutions on the spot. Using only duct tape, plastic bags, and cardboard, they managed to create a way to filter carbon dioxide. I mean, failure here really meant death. The lunar module was never meant to support 3 people. But, it became their lifeboat. Oxygen barely held. Water was rationed to just sips. Sleep was almost impossible. Ice formed on the walls and the astronauts were, freezing in space. Apollo 13 swung around the Moon. The crew looked down at the surface they would never walk on. No celebration, no photos, only silence and the long journey home. To return to Earth, they needed a perfect re-entry. The spacecraft's heat shield could have been damaged. If it failed, they would burn alive. During re-entry, communication was cut off. There was silence. Seconds passed, then more. The world held its breath. Then, a signal. Apollo 13 had survived. Parachutes opened. The capsule splashed into the ocean. Against impossible odds, all 3 astronauts were alive. Apollo 13 never landed on the Moon, but it became one of NASA's greatest successes. Not because everything went right, but because people refused to give up. This is a true story of teamwork, intelligence, calm under pressure, and human resilience. Sometimes survival is the greatest victory of all.